My name is Celeste Lamarre-Vernale. I am an intuitive psychic medium and also a healer. So first of all, I have problems with titles because it creates a separation. Anybody can be anything or have an ability to be any part of this world, the spiritual world. But mediums, in general, are people who can talk to spirit and communicate back and forth with spirit. And there's varied ways that they can do it. They either hear words, pictures, feelings, channeling, etc. And as a healer, my goal is to help people heal their soul and become more whole within themselves. So it's both working with energy, just in different ways. The whole world is energy. If you believe physics and science, energy cannot be destroyed. It can only be manipulated and changed. So the whole entire world is energy. So when we die, our energy has to go somewhere. So I always joke with people and I say, just imagine every time somebody dies, there's this little ball of energy floating around going, what do I do? Where do I go? And all that energy exists around us, and we can use that to heal people. We can use that to communicate with those who have passed. It's all one thing. It's interchangeable. It's just using your ability in a different way. Because I lived in a house that was haunted. We had everything from hearing people go up and down the stairs, random smells, music playing when nobody was home. I would hear drumming sometimes at night outside. We also had very negative experiences with the smell of rancid, like rotting meat and, the bugs on the walls. So we had a lot of varied experiences in the home, and I was always trying to search for answers after I had a near-death experience when I was 8 years old and I was attacked by a dog. So I've always been seeking answers, and now I'm seeking answers for other people. When I was 8 years old, I woke up crying from a nightmare. And I went down and told my mother that I couldn't go to my cousin's birthday party because I was going to be attacked by a dog. She kind of brushed it off because I was a kid, I was 8, and she told me, she said, Celeste, there's not going to be any dogs here, you'll be fine. So I reluctantly went to my cousin's birthday party. I went to my other cousin's house after the birthday party, and we went next door to visit neighbors. I was then attacked by a dog that day. The biggest impact of the dog attack was that I remember watching the dog attack above my body, and I remember feeling like I was home, like I was loved and comforted, and I felt safe. And then I remember being told that I had to go back, and I remember being pissed off and angry. And I remember when the guy pulled the dog off of me, he was rushing me to his car, and he told me not to look back, but me, being an 8-year-old kid, we do the opposite of what you tell us to. And I turned back and I looked at the dog, and I remember I felt no anger towards the dog. I had no pain from the dog attack. even though they stopped counting at over 2,000 stitches. I just remember that whole experience gave me a greater sense of peace, and anger and bitterness through my teen years, but generally a greater sense of peace and desire to find out what does happen to us after we die. Where do we go? And why was I informed beforehand if it wasn't going to impact the outcome? There are several types of hauntings. There are residual hauntings, which is a replay of almost like a VCR tape of an event that continually happens. There is a poltergeist style haunting, which can be either energy trapped within people themselves in the home, or it can also be regarded from spirit, angry, negative spirits. So we can't define that as one or the other. And then there's the hauntings of family members who come back, or people attached to the house who come back to give information or make their presence known for some agenda or some reason of their own. The most common type of haunting that I've experienced is the residual hauntings, especially in Connecticut, because we do have such a rocky limestone-based land. So a lot of it's residual and memory-based hauntings. A lot of times just making changes in an old home can kick some of that up because you're moving walls and stuff, and it's like the house holds the memory of the way it used to be. Probably a very close second to poltergeist activity, which is usually related to trauma or events going on in the home, especially if there's teenagers present, because their hormones create higher electrical impulses within their bodies, which then creates, they need to release it and can create poltergeist activity and events. The dangers of ghost hunting come from people who are empaths or already spiritually connected, who don't know how to control their gifts, and they may come across a spirit or an energy that wishes to speak to them, and so they'll attach to them or follow them home. And when you have a spirit attachment, the only thing that really does to you that's bad is that it can drain your energy. It makes you feel very tired, sometimes depressed. Sometimes you'll pick up the energy of the spirit. So if the spirit was very angry, you may start having anger issues or suddenly start crying over nothing. So it can be very dangerous for people who don't know what they're doing to just go and seek spirits, especially from some of the more negative locations. Asylums, sanitariums, also the various prisons that people go to can be highly active with negative energy and can cause a great deal of harm to people who aren't prepared. I believe that demons are a description of energy that was not understood during a period of time where we had to label everything. So in Catholicism, they're called demons. They have different names in different religions, and I don't know them all, different belief systems. So one of the things that I always tell people is there are negative energies here. We have interdimensional beings. We have dark energies that can attach and cause problems. But there are not the traditional demons in the sense that they're hunting down human beings, looking for somebody to possess, to ruin their lives, because there really is no bonus or benefit to that, because there are not real demon soul collectors in that sense. Demons have no other purpose than to wreak havoc in your life, so they will mimic things like possessions if that's something you believe in or you fear. So basically demons work off of our fears, and they will manifest in that way. Negative energies, you have negative people in life. You had people who were murderers. You had people who were, crazy. I hate to use that word, but crazy for lack of a better word, and had no grip on reality. Those energies can stay trapped on our land and wreak havoc for the people around them. So there are a lot of negative energies, but we have to have that balance. We have to have the light and the dark to be balanced. So we need to learn to walk with the darkness as well as with the light. My opinion on Ouija boards is this. It depends who's using them. So one of the problems is a lot of people who are younger and connected to spirit or have experiences with spirit are either mediums or empaths, and they have a natural connection to spirit. So by using the Ouija board, they unintentionally open a can of worms that they're not really prepared to deal with, because spirit can see if you're connected from the other side, and if you start to open that communication and you don't know what you're doing, that's where you draw on the problems and cause issues. You're not always going to bring in demons. Like, people automatically assume it's demons. It's not always demons, but any kind of energy that attaches to you, as I said before, can cause depression and other issues. The other problem with Ouija boards is the fact that people push them. So the problem is our subconscious mind will move the plan set whether we believe it or not. So what'll happen sometimes is people make up stories which cause other people to be scared, which elevates the fear energy, which can later manifest into a problem if you have people who are highly energetic and have a lot of repressed fears and angers within themselves. So there's a lot of problems with Ouija boards just coming from a psychological aspect of it. Otherwise, Ouija boards are a toy, and they can be used as such with the right people. But I just generally recommend anyone that's really young, teenagers to like 30, just don't use them. Don't cause yourself that kind of headache. Cleansing varies. So it really depends on a couple things. It depends on the individual's belief. And it also depends on the belief of the spirit. So when you have Native American energy that is trapped there, or even a residual energy, just to honor the Native American traditions of sage and cleansing that way is the easiest way to cleanse. Someone who is strictly Catholic, a house blessing really takes care of the home. You can do your own home blessing by getting anointing oil and sage, and you close all your windows, open all your doors, including your cabinets and stuff, and you go around with the sage and just say, I only allow positive, beautiful light and energy in my home, and all negative energy must leave. And you go around from the basement to the top floor to the last window. And when I say top floor, I mean all the way to, if you have an attic, you have to go up there too. And you have to put the sage in every door, so in your closets and your cabinets. Once you do that, you can then you then close your windows, and then if you want to go a step further, you can get anointing oil and put crosses and do blessings over your doorways. It just varies. It's really belief driven, and you could also just say all negative energy needs to leave, and sometimes that alone will have an impact on the home. If the energy is not a negative or dark, deep energy, just stating that you're uncomfortable oftentimes will solve the problem. Think of spirits like you think of people. So if there is spirits in your home, have a conversation with them. It's not going to open, people are afraid it's going to open a doorway, but it won't. And just say, you know, what you're doing is making me uncomfortable. I would like you to stop. If it continues, then you call a professional in to take care of the situation. The difference between investigating and ghost hunting is simple. One is an investigator, which means they're looking into everything that's going on in the home. So any symptoms or conditions that you're talking about, we're going to look at all possibilities, both those that are obvious, such as medications, mice in your walls, electrical problems, leaking gases, etc., to whereas a ghost hunter is just going to come in and try to catch evidence of a spirit. So they're going to be like, oh, we got a recorder, we got an EMF detector, look, it's going off. we try to find out every detail we can to try to get you a real answer versus automatically find you a ghost or a shadow. Investigators usually are not necessarily in it for fame or fortune or to make a name. Most investigators are in it to actually help you find answers. We go into the history of the property. We go into your history. If a good investigative team will actually have a reputable medium on there who can talk to the spirits if there are spirits there. I did a house in Connecticut where they were terrified. They were having so many problems, and come to find out it was just the lady's father who was there trying to make contact due to his concern for the family. So a reputable group will have multiple, or an investigative group will have multiple ways to get information for you, as opposed to these ghost hunters who run off to cemeteries every night to try to get evidence, or they're just running into people's homes trying to get evidence of spirits. They don't look at the whole picture and the whole human context of the situation. I'm also very opposed to people just running to all these different haunted locations that are now popping up to investigate. Those people are usually just thrill seekers and ghost hunters. They're not in it for the true science and truly helping people. I happen to personally love the Mark Twain house. My experiences there varied from just hearing, so one of the stories, and back up for a second, one of the stories is that you'll hear this loud bang in the dining room, and they've had multiple different people come to evaluate what that noise is, and they've never really figured it out. When I was there one evening on one of their ghost tours, we had experienced that bang. It actually shook, like, the whole dining room. And then I had said to the people who were with me, I think they're inviting us to dinner, to which I have an EVP hearing a young girl saying, yes. We also have EVPs of a woman singing, like, lullabies and other various songs and different voices at different times. The biggest problem with the Mark Twain house is everybody wants to assume that it's Samuel Clemens or his daughter or the butler, but there's no hard, solid proof about this. We just have speculation, and it was a boarding house at one point, so there may have been other deaths and stuff connected to the house that we don't have answers for. I really recommend the Mark Twain house for people who are just looking for a beautiful home to visit, less for the hauntings. Dudleytown, I visited back when it was actually open, which they've closed it down and they do not want people going there any longer, and I hope that people will respect the property and the land and allow it to be maintained. But Dudleytown was a very interesting location, as I went with friends initially to see it during the day. It was not an evening event, and when we went, I felt peaceful. We got lost, couldn't find our way through, finally found all the foundations, but I felt very much at peace. And in fact, I went into the foundations and found a piece of pottery, which I thought was really cool, old piece of pottery. And we left, and that was the end of it. I never had a bad experience, but I kept feeling drawn back there, so I went on an evening hike by myself, like a crazy person, because everyone knows you shouldn't hike alone at night, but, I was feeling I had this. And I went hiking, and I got to Dudleytown, and one of the things that I remember most is a sense of not being alone, and just almost like kids were running around me, and there was all these people walking by me. So I really believe that a lot of Dudleytown is actually just a residual haunting. But on my way back, my best story is on the way back, I swear I felt like horses, and I heard carriages going by me, and I felt the steam of the horse's nose right on my face, which I thought was amazing. And then I was getting lost, and I have to admit, I was getting a little bit nervous. I was like, I'm going to be in the woods until daylight. And way down, I finally found a trail, and I saw people flashing their light, heard a dog barking. I was like, oh, yes, I found my way. And they were yelling to me. They're like, are you okay? Because I didn't even have a flashlight, because I didn't plan to be there that late. And I yelled back, I was fine, and I came out of the woods, and they said to me, where's the people you were walking with? Where'd they go? And I'm like, I'm here by myself. I wasn't walking with anybody. So I feel like those that are left that are intelligent, or the spirits that are still connected to that property, came to help me on my way out, knew that I meant no harm, and brought me safely to the edge of town and to the edge of the woods. My opinion on Hollywood and television shows about ghost hunting is not very favorable. I hate to say bad things about anyone or anything. It's just not something I do. But I feel like everything has been sensationalized so that people see it as more exciting than it is. Most ghost hunts result in, or investigations, I don't want to call them ghost hunts, result in people sitting around staring at the wall going, what's that? Did you hear that? The activity isn't that common. The negative activity is really not that common. Interdimensional beings, not that common. Yet somehow in these shows they find 10 to 12 of these in a season. So it really bothers me that the truth about what we do as mediums, as investigators, isn't really out there. The closest show that touched in on the truth was Ghost Hunters in the beginning of the seasons, but now there's so many shows that are over dramatizing and turning it into something it's not. We have mediums going out there over dramatizing and turning it into something it's not, making cleansing so much more complicated than they have to be, needing like 5 different specialists. What I would like to tell people about if their home is haunted is that you actually have the control and the power in your home to get rid of the activity yourself by standing ground and being firm 90% of the time. The experiences that most affected me and got me on the path of trying to understand the spiritual world, the paranormal, was just growing up in a haunted house. I believe that when you grow up in an environment where spirits are present every day, and I had prophetic dreams, like I knew things were going to happen before they did. You begin to question the reality of what this world is. Like, this is tables, these are chairs, but what else is there? So growing up in a house where you'd see spirit almost every day, or you'd hear voices that were not there calling your name, doors would open and close. I woke up one night and there was horses running through my room, only to later find out that my house is actually built on an old racetrack. It drove me to want to understand, and I feel like I'll never get the answers to that. Like, I'll never get the final answers to what the dark energy was in my house, why it was there, why it attacked people, why it would shake my bed, why it would scratch me. But what I will always get is the knowledge that I can conquer any negative energy out there without the help of a priest, without some person throwing holy water on me. So it really impacted me and made me feel protected by God, by a greater energy around me. And I know that I have the power to get through anything now. I have an event coming up at the Curtis House Inn in Woodbury. We have seating for 40 people. There'll be mediumship readings for 2 hours, but prior to the mediumship readings, I'm going to be telling fun ghost stories, spooky stories that have happened to me in my life, along with other stories that friends have told me. And there will be food, and it'll be a really good time. You have to call the Curtis House Inn, though, for tickets. You have to contact them directly. They're in charge of selling the tickets and stuff because it's at their location. I often get asked by people if they too can connect to the energy around us and hear spirit or connect to spirit. The simple answer is yes. Just think back to moments in your life where you had a gut instinct not to take the left you usually take, but to take a right. and you later find out that down that other road there was a terrible accident. Or moments where you feel like your mother's been there or your father's been there and they've been gone so many years now that there's no way you could have smelled them or even had the presence of their voice with you. Think back to a moment where you woke up from a dream and you felt like you hugged somebody you loved, and you woke up feeling good and positive and energized, and you needed it at that moment in your life. Spirit is always trying to reach out to us. Sadly, we usually don't listen. Most of the time we're too busy with the consciousness of our minds, and we're busy with the everyday activities and all of the stuff that's solid around us. So just think for a moment what a different world this would be if we all just stopped and listened.